Welcome, everybody, to the Yo Kids Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Anthony Gargano. This is the podcast that surrounds everything youth sports. So I've covered pro and college sports, the highest level, and I have fallen in love with youth sports. I'm a big believer in sports for children. I just think it's such a great outlet and keeps them out of trouble, they learn so many great life lessons. So as we go forward with the podcast, we're going to be talking to a lot of different people in the world of youth sports. We'll talk to some professional athletes who have children of themselves. We'll talk about the journey of the athlete. We'll highlight some of the terrific youth sports athletes across the Delaware Valley and beyond. But really, we really wanted to try to give some advice to the parents. Listen, if you got a good story, good idea, please, like I said, hit me up and we'll get to Yo Kids Sports Podcast. Welcome back to another Yo Kids Sports Podcast. Very excited because our next guest is, when it comes to football and it comes to college football, youth sports, he's done it all. He's been at a high school level. He's been at 3 top-notch university programs between Temple, Baylor, Nebraska. He's been at the NFL level with the Carolina Panthers. He's now at the University of Nebraska, where he is the GM of the Huskers program. Sean Padden joins us. What do you say, Sean?
Anthony, how are you? How is everything?
Good, man. Good to see you guys, man. Really, it's been a big deal for you guys. You know, you and Matt Rule going to Nebraska, Lincoln, the storied program, and just getting started. What a great story.
It's amazing. You know, you come here and you pass the Tom Osborne statue and you just see that big N, and it's just wild. I was talking to one of our strength coaches during walkthrough this morning and just like gotta be gratitude first. You know what I mean? When it comes to all this, because just never, you know, first time I strapped on pads were for the Lower Providence Warriors way back when, and to be sitting here in Nebraska, it's amazing. You know, it's amazing.
The Lower Providence Warriors, I love it. You got to tell people about your journey, which is such a beautiful one. I mean, it took you to Catholic University. It took you as a coach to Albright, which is a great coaches school. People don't realize that conference produces a lot of NFL coaches.
Yeah. It's I talk to guys all the time about, you know, my journey started, you know, I played football in high school at Bishop Kenrick in Norristown, Pennsylvania. And then I went on to Catholic University, and I was pretty much a scout teamer. I played a little bit on special teams, but was more or less a scout teamer. And then I was a student assistant there and just got bit by the bug, you know, said, this is, you know, I was an accounting undergrad and, you know, was supposed to come home for job interviews and had to call dad and say, I think I'm going to coach football, you know, and he was real quiet. And he goes, all right, just make sure they pay for your master's degree. I said, you got it. And then at Albright College is where I met Matt Rule. We were both 23 years old, both coaching football, and decided that this is what we wanted to do with our careers. And the defensive coordinator was Jeff Collins, former head coach at Georgia Tech. So I had the D-line, Rule had the linebackers, and Collins had the secondary. And we had more fun than you could ever imagine. Some of those guys are still good friends of mine. I ended up years later helping out at Monsignor Bonner. Tom Fitty was the defensive coordinator. I was his D-line coach. We recruited Fitty to Albright out of Bonner. So that place and coaching D3 ball, I tell young guys all the time, and you know, when they're asking about their career path, I say, you know what, if you can afford it, because it's hard, you're not making much money. I made $1,800 that first year, living in a dorm, eating in the cafeteria like I was a freshman all over again. But you got to coach your own position. You got to recruit your own area. You got to run your own meetings. When I became, you know, as I got up to higher levels beyond that and helping full-time position coaches, I was so much better at being prepared and being able to anticipate what they needed for meetings, what they needed to be prepared for themselves. So those first couple of years as, as a guy just grinding it out, making no money at the D3 level, really, in my opinion, paid off because I had a much better perspective when I became a graduate assistant at the University of Albany.
It's funny. I hear that story from a lot of really successful people in the NFL and in college football. Andy Reid told me that he had gotten married at a very young age while he was at BYU, and he and his wife Tammy were living. He was working at San Francisco State, and when they would have like a team function, it was like they have all the hot dogs, and he loved it because it was like free food. He's like, I got to eat my hot dogs. And, date night was, they had no money. They would walk around the wharf, get like an ice cream cone. And like, that was, everything revolved around, look, because you make no money. So whatever you got, like a university function and you got some food, like that was all part of the whole deal.
Yeah. It's being here, we've got a lot of resources. So the young guys on our staff, they're getting fed left and right. For us, it was,
well, that Nebraska good food, that's for sure.
Oh my gosh, best nutrition staff in the country, bar none, bar none. But I can't fit into a lot of my clothes right now because of how damn good a job they do. But they're terrific. But yeah, as a young coach, you are just scrapping, and I think that's what Matt and I kind of shared that experience at a young age. In Reading, we'd be like, all right, where's wing night? We got to beat the players there because if we're there before the players, we get to stay and they have to leave. So that was our deal. We'd hustle to get to wing night so that we could get there and get cheap wings. You know what I mean? Because we had no stinking money, and that cafeteria food just runs out on you. You know what I
mean? That's fantastic. So from your journey, like when you look back at it, and you and Matt really hit it off, and you guys really came on the scene at Temple University, and which is so interesting of how you built that program. And you're in charge of the program. You're now the GM, and so you're director of football operations, which oversees what? Recruiting. I mean, everything when it comes to the program itself, compliance and all.
So I have shifted here at Nebraska. So when I was at Temple and when I was at Baylor, and even in Carolina to an extent, I was really more football operations, not so much on the recruiting. We had a different apparatus as far as recruiting, but I would sort of all the different operating units that are involved, whether it be under our purview or we are associated with it. So like the training room, the strength and conditioning, all of the rehab, that sort of medical piece, how that connects with all of our academic support and all of the people that handle all of that academic support. Because coming out of that is study halls, is class checks, is all of those things that you need to do if you want to run an accountable program. And one of the things at Temple is that Philly's such a great town that you have to stay on top of the guys because there's so much to do. There's so much to get into. There's so much going on in the city that you sort of have to run a tight ship so that, you can make sure that guys are where they're supposed to be. They're on time. They know there's accountability. There's more to do in Philly than there is in Waco, Texas. So you got to make sure that the Philly guys are that you have a good handle and that they know where they're supposed to be and what the expectations are. So all of these different operating units, that feed up into the football program or from administration top down, from compliance that comes over, and then how recruiting connects into all of that, especially when it comes to, the operations associated with the people who are flying in, kids need hotel rooms, all of those types of things. The job in football operations is to take all of that crap off of the football coaches' plates, all of that stuff off so that the coaches don't think about that at all. They're not worried about that. And as much as you can take off of the head coaches, good friend of mine, Ron Schertz, always says, he addressed the team, and he always says this is, do what your boss hates, do the things you hate, go take that. Well, I'm an old ball coach. I don't love it. Deep down, I'm still a D-line coach. You know what I mean? And I'm like, maybe there's a shot somewhere I can just, But meanwhile, I know the best thing that I can do for the coaches is to take all of these things and all these worries off their plate. And here at Nebraska, I have shifted over into recruiting and into the NIL space. And but I still, help our chief of staff and our DFO with how all of this interconnected is. But our goal is to let the coaches coach and let the players play, and for us to quiet all the other noise that can come creeping in, and to make sure that they're taking care of their business. Because listen, as a student, you start the semester fast, you start the semester right. Then when midterms come around, you're not sitting there scrambling and saying, oh my God, I have an 11-page paper that I haven't even started yet. And we've got practice and I've got this and I've got that. Because guess what happens when your cortisol levels get all jacked up because of your stress? You get hurt. You get hurt. So even when you take care of, the reason you want to keep academic stress down is because you want to keep people healthy. So all of those things matter. And when you start the semester off right, and you start the semester off knowing I got this, I got that, I got that, I got that, that it doesn't lead to stress as the season, because the season in and of itself is going to be stressful. You're going to have ups, you're going to have downs, you're going to have family visiting, you're going to have this, you're going to have your girlfriend, you're going to have, all these things stress as the semester goes. The noise gets louder and the stress becomes higher. And our job is to make sure that things that we can help them control, to make sure they control it and dominate it so that they can focus on the things that they need to focus on, from a football perspective.
And don't forget, our Yo Kids Sports podcast is presented by Primo Hoagies. Listen, know what I've always said for years and years and years. It's not just a hoagie, it's a Primo. And this fall, whether you're tailgating, football, soccer, it's youth, you name it, make sure you got your Primo Hoagie party tray. Nothing like it for the big game. And speaking of football and the big game, this fall we're giving away a trip to Vegas to see the very big game to one very lucky, very deserving coach. So if you know a youth coach that you think deserves recognition for their outstanding dedication and passion, make your nominations today. PrimoHoagies.com. You can go directly mvc.primohoagies.com. Our most valuable coach promotion here at Primos. I love it. We got to shine some love, give some love to these youth coaches that spend their time, many of whom just getting their full and no compensation. So they're the best. Nominate your favorite coach. Again, it's the Primo Hoagies most valuable coach contest. I love it. I think it's great. And who knows, maybe they'll get to see the birds at the big game. Wouldn't that be something?
You obviously that's sports science about the cortisol levels. That I think there's a correlation between stress and your body sensing and feeling stress and getting injured.
Yeah, literally. I mean, stress is a killer. Stress is a killer in many ways. But there are, we track academic stress. Our sports scientist, Mitch Sholowinski, like Mitch, of all the different things that he's tracking, we're tracking body weight, we're tracking hydration levels, we're asking them about their sleep scores. And a lot of these things are voluntary. We're asking them about their soreness level. He's also tracking assignments. How many assignments are due? How many of this are due? How many? Because all of those things, from nutrition, all of those things, whether it's, doing force plate jumps so we can check for asymmetry, to any number of things that we're doing, can all be contributors to injury. And we want to reduce the amount of injuries, because what happens when you do get hurt? Kids get sad. Kids start doing bad in school. Kids feel like they're not connected to the rest of the team. And you really have to make sure that you put your arms around those guys when they do get hurt. But the best way to avoid all that is to not get hurt. And if you're taking care of your business and you're taking care of your body and you're treating it like a pro and you're taking all of this stuff seriously, then you can reduce those injuries for sure.
What's your messaging to the freshmen that are coming in? And I want to get into recruiting and youth football and the whole thing, but I find this so interesting. When you're talking to the incoming freshmen, I mean, you're talking about kids that were elite kids at their own high schools and now coming to a place where everybody's elite. This is the pinnacle of college football, the pinnacle of Saturdays. 100,000 strong in Lincoln. What's your messaging? And it could be a lot, really overwhelming for a kid, I could imagine.
Yeah, very much so. I think that we do. So we have one of the operating units that we interface with is our sports psychology, Dr. Brett Haskell. And Dr. Haskell is involved on our recruiting visits. When you come on your recruiting visit, you meet Dr. Haskell. And Dr. Haskell talks to these guys when they're here on their visit. And her and her team, they're also all dual certified in terms of just overall wellness. So they're not just sports psych. They're also, folks that can check in on your overall well-being, and they're completely well-rounded. We've had individuals, but we've never had a full team the way that we have here. So that starts. I also think that because we have a big staff, and people criticize us for it, but listen, I'd rather spend money on people and having people around these guys, because kids do get, the bends in reverse. All of a sudden they weren't, they went from, everybody wants to, recruiting, everybody wants to know everything they're doing, everything. And then they show up here and they throw their bag down, and now they're in the fight with everybody else, and everybody else is competing. So I think the number of people we stress to everybody on staff is everyone's trying to make a connection with these guys. You never know who's going to connect with somebody, and you're always being intentional about making connections with these young people, because you never know who's going to see what. You know what I mean? You're never going to know who's going to see somebody that's really struggling. Hey, man, I was talking to so-and-so. He's kind of down, man. I don't know. Are you seeing the same thing? And that way you can kind of get out in front of kids that are really having problems adjusting. The problem, one of the difficulties is they put so much stress on themselves. They put so much stress on themselves. They feel like they should be microwave All-Americans. And everybody at home doesn't get all the work that needs to go to get you from here to here. It might only be a little bit of space, but it takes so much to get you there. And you're battling, competing directly with everybody. And that's sort of the great thing about sport, right? It's the only class you take in pure competition, right? You're taking pure competition, and it's collectively you as a group competing against another group, and it's you as an individual competing against other guys in your position group or on kickoffs or everything like that. And it's hard, and it's supposed to be hard. That's why it's so rewarding. But you got to make sure that these young guys, like, it's got to be very personal. Aunt, you said, what's the message? Well, it's got to be personal with each individual guy. Sometimes they're just not there yet developmentally. Like we had one young man that's only his first year of football, or second year of football, played just his senior year and his year. So that guy's far away, but you show him on tape, you're not that far away. It feels like you're that far away, but look at, took a bad step, you took a bad angle, you didn't have the right hand placement. All of those things make you feel like you're so far away, but you correct this piece, you correct this piece, you correct this piece, you correct this piece. And all of a sudden, and you rep it and you rep it and you rep it, and it's there. But you have to reach out to these young folks and meet them where they're at, and get a sense of where they're at, and make sure that they understand, hey, there's a plan for you. Like, you're here for a reason. There is a plan for you. Don't think that this track that you're on is predetermined and predefined. It's a journey, and you don't know which way it's going to go, whether it be injury or whether redshirting. There's a journey to all of this, but you just got to keep putting one foot in front of the other, and battling every single day, no matter what comes, and have that what's next mentality. And so I wouldn't say it's one message. Like, some kids, some guys are going to be freshmen, are going to play. Some guys are going to be freshmen, they might not play until they're seniors. And so some guys might play 3 different positions. It's a journey for all these guys. So more than just a singular message, it's more of a message to our staff to say everybody here is trying to make connections with the young people on our staff, so that we can all intervene when they're down on just the littlest thing or the littlest day, and to have somebody say, hey, you making that play from behind on that outside zone today was really good. That was a nice job. And he's a scout teamer. He's a scout team raider, and didn't even know anybody was watching him make that play. You know what I mean? And all of a sudden, kid's a little pepped up. Hey, I didn't think anybody cared. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? But
yeah.
if you can have that, intentional connection with these, with these young people, then you got a shot to be out in front when they're down in the dumps or when today's not their day to work hard. You know what I mean? You don't want them giving up days. You know what I mean? You want them
Sure.
because that's the way they're going to develop. That's the way they're going to reach their full potential. And frankly speaking, that's the way we're going to, win a Big Ten championship.
How unique, you mentioned the one of your players who only played 1 year of football up until this year. How rare is that? I mean, how did you find him?
Um, just shoe leather, you know what I mean? Just
Right.
coaches out on the road talking to other coaches. Some guys are on the radar from the time they're freshmen, and some guys don't emerge on the radar until, I mean, heck, the NFL's filled with guys that, played basketball and
Yeah.
then decided to give it a shot, or specialized in baseball and then, played a couple of years and, and now, came back. So there's all sorts of different stories, but in terms of how you find that guy, it's pure shoe leather. It's pure coaches going, just stopping by another high school, hitting that 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th high school a day to go shake that coach's hand and find out, hey, coach. And then the coach says, you know what? I didn't talk to you, this guy, back when you were here in May, because I didn't know he was going to be able to do this. But you should take a look at this guy. You know what I mean? And that happens. And then to be able to, be able to talk to them about development and saying, listen, it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard, but we think that you have the potential and we believe in you. And when they come here and they struggle, you have to continue to engage them. Say, it's going to be all right. You're making steps that you don't even know, that you don't even see, that you don't even realize on tape.
So when do you think the process begins? Like, so I have an eighth grader who plays football. In fact, one of his teammates is 6'4", about 240, and like and he's not reclassified. He's a legitimate eighth grader who is a beast of a kid, and he's already starting to get some attention in eighth grade. Like, when does that kind of start, and when do kids finally get on the radar and or that sort of thing? Because it's such a weird kind of world, this thing.
I think somebody pre-high school, well, here's how someone like that gets on a radar, whatever position is, it's through camps. It's going to camps. People say, well, how do we, I have, I've had cousins that, have, been recruiting age, or now I have friends, their kids are all starting to get to that recruiting age and everything like that. More than anything else, no matter the level, in my opinion, and we believe in this here, is go to camps. Go to the camps. Go to Nova's camp. Go to Millersville's camp. Go to Albright's camp. Go to Temple's camp. Go show them who you are. Go show them you at the front of the line. You want to get the extra reps. You taking the coaching and putting it into action. Like, show people, because I can just tell you from the Temple camps is that and here is what we have coaches from all different levels that are there. You know what I mean? Even if you're not, even if you're not somebody that that Coach Rule or Coach Franklin is going to have their eye on in there, but there's Coach Ferranti sure as shoot might, or some of those other coaches that that are at that level. You know what I mean? Some guy at Eastern might be like, hey, really, what I mean? All of a sudden, like, I had a wonderful Division III program. Coach Gutt at Catholic might see you there. You know what I mean? You're at the Maryland camp, but Coach Gutt is there from Catholic U, and all of a sudden you're getting you make their radar. You know what I mean? And I also think technology makes it so that I'm not a huge proponent of services. There are certain national ones that we subscribe to, and they're very good, but we have the resources to watch everybody that we need to watch. You know what I mean? So ours is a little bit different, but nothing replaces going there and getting it done right in front of them. You know what I mean? No one said 8 hours worth of work in front of a position coach, just showing it over and over and over again, I think is invaluable.
Do you believe in youth football? Do you believe in learning the game from a younger age? I mean, some depends on who you talk to.
Yeah, I think that. So when I got out of, so I coached for about 10 years. And then I got out of football. I went into the private sector. I was a D-line coach at Fordham. And then after that season, I resigned and moved back to Philly, and lived in Philly. And I coached the 5 and 6-year-olds for the West Philly Tar Heels. I coached 5 and 6-year-olds, West Philly Tar Heels.
That's awesome.
And it was so much fun. Everybody was in it for the right reasons. You know what I mean? Everybody there. Nobody was there reliving their own glory you know what I mean? Everybody was there for the kids. It was all about the kids. And it was a wonderful, wonderful experience. And I think the value to the people of West Philadelphia may be different to the value people at Marsh Creek. But I know that those parents, it was very important for them to have these guys involved in football and to have these young people engaged at a young age and to carry that engagement for a long time. I also think that, I started playing football, in 5th grade, and, carried it all the way, up through college. I think that, everyone says, what's the right age to start or anything like that? And that's frankly, it's going to be when your kid demands it, really wants to play it. You know what I mean? I think that if you want to play high school football, this is just my opinion, but if you want to play high school football and the potential of maybe playing in college, but at the very least, if you want to play high school football, in my humble opinion, you should at least be in pads by 7th grade.
Yeah.
I think the first time you suit up shouldn't be in 9th grade against 10th and 11th graders that have been playing football for a while. 7th grade, you're not quite as fast to really, you know what I mean? But the first time you see that speed and the first time, you got to hit somebody, you know what I mean? Probably should be when you're a little bit younger so that you can learn the proper technique, so that you're keeping your head out of there, you're near foot, near shoulder, and you're not, the first time you hit somebody shouldn't be when you're potentially going to hit a man. You know what I mean? And if you start at the high school level, I feel like you'd be better served starting at an earlier age when you're a kid so that you can learn properly how to do it and to be playing for an organization that values proper technique over winning ball games. And I think you can get that at a younger age. I think at a younger age, I know that that's the way things were in West Philly as far as our younger guys, and this is going way back. But as far as our younger guys, the stress was on doing it the right way, making them tackle the right way. Kid puts his head down, you correct that. You make sure that you make a point of correcting that, so that guys, because you see it today, some guys can't hit they're not ambidextrous with their shoulders.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, somebody gets to make a play, and then they twist themselves and they try and hit with the shoulder they're more comfortable with, and their head gets in the way, and all of a sudden, you know what I mean? Like, no, you got to be ambidextrous. You got to be able to hit with this shoulder, hit with that shoulder. Like all of those skills and techniques you learn at a young age, and that's why I'm a big advocate, of youth football.
Yeah, it's funny. I'm glad you said that because I feel the same way. I also think it gives kids a sense of pride. I know it gave my son when he first started playing. Baseball really wasn't his sport, and I think he struggled a little bit. And he was all right basketball, but I said, let's play some football. And he was bigger. And man, and just when he got through practice, the end of training camp, as soon as we started the season, I watched that chest go up and the shoulders go back. And he felt it, like, because you know this, when you're just getting through a training camp, right? Like getting through, that summer heat practice, when you're a kid doing that, that's an accomplishment. I remember some of the coaches saying, look, a lot of kids right now, they're at the swim club, they're on video games, they're home in the air conditioning, and you're out here every night for 2 hours in a hot, buggy field, working. Advantage you for doing that.
no question, you learn something about yourself. You learn something about yourself at a young age. You learn how to overcome. You learn that you got more to you than you think you did. You know what I mean? Like you're in that first practice. I remember my first game, Field and Country against the Golden Bears, and some guy just knocked me in the dirt and continued to knock me in the dirt and continue. It was one of the youth, a touchdown could take 6 minutes because it takes so long. They're playing on a 100-yard field. It takes so stinking long, and you're just like, oh, well, this guy just kept boom, just kept burying me. And I played my last high school football game at that field, and I hope that guy was playing for Archbishop Kennedy because I was probably knocking him in the dirt that night. But you learn something about yourself. You know what I mean? You're like, boy, I really got crushed today. This guy really took me to the cleaners, but I'm gonna be back. You know what I mean? I'm gonna be back. I'm gonna keep fighting. And you learn something about yourself in youth sports, and I think in particular youth football, whether it's you against somebody else or whether it's you against you, whether it's those sprints at the end of practice, you know what I mean? Those are, I think they're invaluable lessons for young people to learn about yourself. And it builds character, it reveals character. I don't care which it is. I think it builds it. I don't think it reveals it. I think it builds it, especially in the youth. Push yourself off the earth and get yourself back on your feet. The more you can do that as a young person, I think it benefits you greatly in the long run.
Yeah, I'm so with you. It's such just a sport. Football is such. First of all, we have an amazing love affair in this country with it, and which is beautiful. I mean, you're in the heart, in the heartland and in the hotbed of it all, right? At Lincoln. But I love the fact that there is this kind of, the physicality. I think it's good for boys to be physical. And I think to get that exertion out, to build that stuff, I think just for their development, right? And it's not for everybody, but I think for a lot of kids, it can really have a net positive, even if they're not playing at Nebraska and they just play through high school. It just helps them physically and mentally to get through those tough stages of adolescence.
I agree. Like you're going to go through something at some point, and how are you going to know what you have under the hood? How are you going to know what you have? Like things aren't always going to go right. You know what I mean? As you get older, you're going to not get into that school you wanted to get into, or you're going to get injured, or you're not that good at this particular sport, but or at this particular thing. But I think that early on, if you can kind of learn some of these lessons where it felt like I'm never going to be any good at this, and then all of a sudden, you know what I mean, you make a tackle, you know what I mean, or you learn how to get off that block. You feel the development. The kid feels the development.
Welcome to Primo. How can we help you today?
One old-fashioned meatball, and make it quick, because I got practice.
You got it. Coach?
Congratulations, Coach! You've been nominated by your team to win 2 tickets to the big game!
Wait, nominated? So I didn't win?
Smile.
Not yet, Coach.
Most valuable
Not
coach.
yet.
Smile,
Not
Coach.
yet.
Smile.
Come on, smile.
Smile for the cameras,
Smile.
Coach.
You got to be kidding me.
Smile, Coach.
Sean, how do you, the role of, puberty when you're talking about, these kids and, whether it's, it's like 7th through 9th grade. I mean, like you see the difference. We in fact had a game against a bunch of reclassified 8th graders. They were like 15 years old. And it was literally like going up against, men, 8th graders. Like on our team, we're like 12 and 13 and going up against 50-year-olds. It was such a drastic difference when you were looking at recruiting and the whole thing, and the role of puberty and development. I mean, how huge is that whole thing?
We had a receiver today. We send out to the staff birthdays. Like, hey, so and so. So, hey, it's Jalen Lloyd's 18th birthday today, and we were like, oh my gosh, he's only 18. He's just, he's just a puppy. Like, like his ceiling. And then there are conversations that you have about, whether, a young person has hit their ceiling. You know what I
Right.
mean? You say, well, is he, for us, it's not that we don't want great players ready to go right now, but we sort of pride ourselves on developmental. You know what I mean? Like, we want to make sure that we're a developmental team. I mean, couldn't tell you how many of those guys from those Temple teams are still playing football in the NFL, come in no
Yeah.
stars, 2 stars, 1 stars, and and they're runner up for defensive player of the year or captain of this, or so there's development. So there you do have conversations about where do you project this individual 2 years from now, 3 years from now. Like, that's an absolute conversation that we have, is what will this individual be 3 years from now? Is he all conference? Is he this? Is he that? You know what I mean? Like, we do play the projection game, and what the ceiling is from a developmental standpoint. But I mean, puberty, I mean, you're talking much younger than than I'm dealing with at this point right now. I mean, my time in youth sports was really just something to continue to give back. You know what I mean? It was really just having fun. You know what I mean? It was really just having a good time. But I'll tell you an interesting story. So, in between the Panthers and Nebraska, I worked for a company, and we did a lot of performance analytics and injury analytics. So the NFL, all of their electronic medical records is this company, and Premier League. And so I was talking to a friend of mine who was over, he's over in Scotland, but he worked for the Premier League. And we were talking about some of the youth academies. And he was telling me, I said, I'm looking through all these different customizable programs that they're doing for guys in this study and that study. And I said, what is maximum height velocity? What is that? I saw that in this thing you guys did for Chelsea FC. And he said, well, that's a growth spurt. He said, when they hit a growth spurt, Chelsea shuts their guys down for like a couple of weeks. Like, if they see a big growth spurt, they will shut kids in their academy down and take them through rudimentary type exercises. They get them to stop playing. They stop playing and just drill them for a little while in order for them to gain, to get, because this is not me, but they felt that there was an increased risk of injuries when those growth spurts would happen. Now, if you're not playing, if you're playing solely for Chelsea FC, and you're in there,
Right.
and then they'll shut you down. But if you say, hey, listen, I'm shutting my kid down, and you're gonna have you're gonna have his travel baseball coach be like, what are you talking about? I need him, but in these programs that have these academies that are taking that kind of care of their assets, they've got them on GPS tracking, at the youth level. It's kind of wild. But when it comes to puberty, when they hit it, they'll shut them down for a little while, just to make sure that they get their dexterity right, and make sure that their balance is good and everything's back, because they don't want them to get hurt. It's wild.
Wow, I didn't even realize that there's an increase. You don't even think of that there's an increased chance of injury because you shot up 2 inches or 3 inches, and then you're just off kilter a little bit.
That was their hypothesis. It wasn't mine. But that was what the study was. There was all these customizable studies, and I would look through them and read through them and try and understand what they were trying to figure out here. And I asked Bridgie, I'm like, hey, what is this? What is this maximum height velocity? What is this? And he goes, it's growth spurt. He said
Wow.
they will shut their guys down for a little while, to make sure that they're good.
That's wild. That's unbelievable. Oh my God. Do you, when you're talking about position, and obviously, I mean, kids will change positions at every level, right? Like, all the time. So what do you do for a kid? Would you like to see them exposed to every position? Like, what if I got a kid who's got a big arm, right? Do you send him to quarterback camps? Do you send him to personalized coaches? If I have a big kid who's a line, do I send him to like a line coach? What's your belief in that, in getting him ready for someone like you?
I think that quarterback's a special position. Quarterbacks, from a recruiting standpoint, are almost a year ahead of everybody else. You know what I mean? Guys that are getting offered as sophomores,
Yes.
quarterbacks are getting offered earlier. You know what I mean? They're sort of a different animal. And because let's be honest, you go to the NFL and what do you got? 14, 15 really good quarterbacks. And then after that, you want to know why? It's not that those other guys aren't trying. They're trying really hard. It's just really hard to do. It's just incredibly hard to do. You know what I mean? And that's why there's only a few people in the world that can actually do it. How many people in the world are trying to be great quarterbacks? And there's not that many of them, a couple of dozen. You know what I mean? But yet all over they realize, so quarterback's kind of a different thing. I wouldn't necessarily say, pull them out and not have them play other positions or other things like that. We see both sides of it, in that a lot of the time in the state of Texas, kids don't play both ways. They have big enough programs, you know what I mean? And you see some of these wide receivers, and they're 6'2", 210, and you're like, man, he could be 6'2", 240 and just smacking people. You know what I mean? And you're like,
being
I would love
off
to
the
see
edge with that.
Yeah, exactly. Could he rush the passer? And that's the thing. Listen, when everything is said and done, if you can be the quarterback or affect the quarterback, you're gonna play a long time. And so you have to sort of guess. A lot of times with these Texas guys, you have to progress because they don't play both ways. Whereas a lot of times some of the other states, you do see kids playing both ways. So you're like, oh, I wonder if he'll hit anybody. Oh yeah, he will. You know what I mean? But a wide out, sometimes you don't get a chance to see that. And so, I'm not going to sit here and say, everybody's different, but I'd love to see a guy play multiple positions throughout their career, because I also think that it helps their understanding. If you've played safety, then at quarterback, you know how to move a safety with your eyes, and that's big.
Yes. Do you see the differences, like when you're on the recruiting trail and, seeing all this talent all around the country, the traits and the characteristics from the different parts of the country, from Florida to like the Rust Belt to, you mentioned Texas or the Midwest, what's sort of the character traits that you like to kind of stand out, or is it kind of homogenized now?
I think that there's different. I wouldn't say that, you wouldn't sit there and say, oh, you can't get a good O lineman out of Florida. Like, that's not true. Right. You know what I mean? Or, a lot of Texas is spread, you know what I mean? So you don't see a lot of guys playing fullback or playing tight end in some of these places, but other places, there's other schools in Texas that are running 22 and they're, they got two backs and two tight ends and they are doing it. So to say that like one area of the country is more than the other, but you do have, some areas of the country that play it 12 months out of the year. You know what I mean? So, or that play, that are playing, 7-on-7 all year long. You know what I mean? So there are some places like down south, sometimes you get more skilled players from a quantity standpoint than you do some, say in the Northeast, because, in the Northeast, kids are playing basketball or they're wrestling or, they're inside, whereas that, down south, guys are playing 7-on-7 all year long. And so you do, from a number standpoint, you may see more skill players down there, but it's a give and take. But I wouldn't say that in this particular area you get this particular area you get that, because there's good players at good position, at different positions all over the country. But seasonally, that can impact the numbers at times. Yeah.
Do you like kids that play all the sports?
Yeah, I do. I don't know. Football's kind of different because it isn't year round. No one's on my spring 11-man football team. You know what I mean? Like it's different than these other sports. Football, for the most part, is one of the things that remains sort of, from a recruiting standpoint, a straight line thing. Like, you talk to the coach, right? Because there's one coach. There isn't an AAU coach. Now, a lot of these teams are, we mentioned 7-on-7 before. A lot of these, there are sort of this emerging sort of AAU type, 7-on-7, not scholastic type programs that are happening. But for football's sake, it's pretty much right through the high school coach. It's pretty much through that, or at least you're engaging with the high school coach, and then you may engage with multiple other people with regard to the recruiting of it. But it will start and end with their coach, because football is sort of singular in that you're really only playing for one football team. And so therefore you really start there with that particular coach. Whereas some of these other sports, it's just different.
AAU basketball.
Yeah.
Baseball is a million, you're playing for $1 million in your travel teams. So yeah.
I just hope that for just growing up, in Philly and in Norristown, I hope that we don't lose the regional scholastic teams in some of these other sports. Not everything needs to be a commercial driven team that gets put together from all over the place. And believe me, there's a place for them, and they do amazing things, and they take kids to levels that maybe the dad that's helping out with the CYO team can't. And I understand that, but I think there's also something about growing up, playing the guys from, what I mean, like, growing up and playing the guys from the other side of town, what I mean, growing up and,
Sure.
and I hope that doesn't disappear. You know what I mean?
No, there's a charm. There's a charm to all that. Do you look at, when you look at certain kind of levels of play, right? Like, so let's look at football, and let's look at your sport, and you're looking at all these kids, and you're going, all right, are you better off missing a year or kind of reclassifying from 8th grade, or to go to an academy like IMG? You see a lot of that, where kids now are 19, 20 coming into college. Like, for parents, do you think it's a good idea to do that?
I think it's an individual type thing. I've seen success in every different direction. I've seen guys that that reclassified, and you have the conversation, says, is he maxed out? You know what I mean? Like, is there much growth left in this guy's, or you see like the guy I mentioned earlier, like Jacob, like, boy, he's gonna be something. Like, he's just a puppy, you know what I mean? So I think you sort of see it both ways. I don't think there's a right or a wrong to it. I think there's a maturity factor to it too. I think that if you've got a young person that you think kind of needs some growing up to do, then maybe that is, you know what I mean? Maybe they need another year to appreciate the opportunity that they have to take care of it. But it's been a problem. My old man used to work for the Auditor General's office for Governor Casey. And one of the first things he had to do was go to Mount Carmel, PA, and knocking on doors trying to find out if people were reclassifying their kids just for football. And everybody just slammed their door in his face. And this is the 70s, you know what I mean? So people have been reclassing kids, certainly in Pennsylvania, for a long time. It's not something brand new, to be completely honest with you. The coal region's been doing it for quite some time, So I think it's not a new thing, but in terms of, is it the right thing or the wrong thing, I think that's completely up to the parents and the kids, I don't know. I've seen success in both directions.
How do you, to get back to your job real quick, and I'm fascinated by this, the NILs, and we've seen it now, drift into the youth sports level, right? Into high school level. It's amazing. What has this done for collegiate sports? I mean, this whole thing that's just become a monster?
For me personally, I love it. I absolutely love it. Number one, everybody can clutch their pearls all they want. It was 9-0 by the Supreme Court. It wasn't even close. So I fully support it. I love it. I love the way that we're doing it. You can have a philosophy. There's, different philosophies for how you want it. I work with our collective 1890, and we talk philosophy. We don't talk about an individual, hey, give him this or do that or anything like that. But philosophically, we want a broad base. We want to not be a sweepstakes type program, but a type of program where everybody sort of gets gets some love, you know what I mean, and gets and that's a choice you make, because maybe there's some superstars that might be not in your orbit, but we feel like in order to have a locker room the type of locker room that we want to have, that we chose from a philosophical standpoint to have a broad base. And we had 100 athletes. 1890 put 100 athletes under contract in some way, shape, or form, and that's a choice that we make, and that's a choice that they made, with regard to those individuals. But it's a choice that you can make in terms of how you want the thing to be structured. And I love it because in the recruiting process, you really get to know what a kid's all about. You know what I mean? You really get to have good conversations with them. And you also get to take the steam out of some of these families that could really use the help.
Yeah.
I remember being at Temple and we had a guy, you'd know the name. And just one day he was just acting like a jerk. And I pulled him aside. I'm like, what's going on, man? Like, what? You all right? This isn't like you. And he says, Mom just got an eviction notice. And I'm like, oh, man, like, he's got 2 younger siblings, one's a baby, and he has this sort of remorse that he can't go do help. He can't help. You know what I mean? He can't help. Well, that's happening all over the roster. You know what I mean? That's happening. You get 130 young people. You are the one that's supposed to, that's going to save the family. Sure. And we have these big aspirations for you, and they have big aspirations on themselves, and they feel all of this pressure. And for them to be able to take the pressure off of their families, and sort of spread out some of this love and some of what they're getting, I think is absolutely invaluable. I couldn't tell you how many kids were stressed out about parents struggling, families struggling, and they almost had this sort of, pardon the phrase, survivor's remorse that they're here in this dynamite facility, getting fed all the great food and everything in the world, and back home things aren't as rosy. And this helps. This really helps. NIL helps families. It helps young people. I love it. And when you talk to young people, and if that's all they want to talk about, they don't care about their development. They don't care about school. All they want to know is what the number is. Then you say, this might not be the right place for you, because that's not where our priorities are going to be. But in the same regard, I feel that we're competitive with anybody in terms of the overall, offerings that, that our collective has. But in terms of this whole process, we choose a broad base so that we feel that from a philosophical standpoint, we think it's going to be a better roster as a result of that. And in the recruiting process, there's every right for them to make this money, and these are the rules. And people can sit there and say, oh, I don't think it should be. And what are you going to do? You're going to put 2 feet down to call it a touchdown just because you feel the second foot should go down? No, it's 1 foot. Put 1 foot in. Those are the rules. Well, the rules are this, is that these collectives are allowed to compensate these guys for their name, image, and likeness. We had a guy that, he was just running late to one of his appearances. I'm like, you got to go see this company, man. Like, this is a company. Like, you don't understand. Like, this company could hire you down the road.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you need to go. You need to go there and show out and shake hands and, really do it. There's really great opportunities in these fulfillment, obligations that these guys have to further themselves and to further their career, especially in a place like Lincoln, where they love you forever. If you're a Cornhusker, they love you forever. And so it's like, get out, know these people, shake their hands. It's a wonderful opportunity. And I'm just a huge fan of NIL. I think that if, well, my camera's jacked up, you can't see it. I have a Renaissance painting up on my wall here because everyone's like, oh, it's the Wild West. It's not the Wild West, man. It's the Renaissance. Something beautiful is coming. And so I enjoy it and love it. And I think it's wonderful to be able to see these guys, be compensated for their name, image, and likeness.
I love that. What advice would you have for youth football coaches?
I would say, number one, engage with USA Football. I think that from a instruction standpoint, I never worked directly with them, but Gabe Infante. Gabe used to be the head coach at St. Joe's Prep. He's now at Penn State. So Gabe's a good friend of mine. And I remember him talking about, he would travel around for USA Football and give instruction. And I remember just thinking, that's a wonderful thing. You know what I mean? And I think that engage in that. We used on the college level and even on the pro level, we used a company called Atavus that did, that taught sort of the rugby tackle.
Right.
And really taught, near foot, near shoulder. I think that I would spend a hell of a lot of time on safety. I think that the whole point of youth football, in my opinion, is if they want to keep playing, and as the bodies start moving faster, and the collisions and those things start becoming, then you need to know how to do that, and how to properly, bow your neck and strike properly, keep your head out of there. It's going to make you a safer football player. So youth coaches, I would say, please engage in as much as you can in terms of safety and instruction, and yourself getting as much educated as you can on it, getting educated on concussions and recognizing it, and talking to your team about, you don't keep it quiet. And if you see somebody that looks a little bit off, you say something. You say something to him, you say something to a coach, you say something to a trainer, because the days of rub dirt on it are gone.
Yes.
Hey, you sprained your ankle, man, rub some dirt on it. You're seeing stars, man, you get the hell out. Get out.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Get out, and get yourself looked at. And but from a safety standpoint, I would make sure that, that they're well educated and committed to that safety portion. And I would say, you personally don't take it too seriously. Let them take it seriously, but you don't have to take it so seriously. It's not your wins and losses. You know what I mean? I know you're trying to teach them, but teach them grace too. You know what I mean? Teach them grace. Teach them to lose gracefully. Teach them to respect their opponents, because guess what? You alluded to this earlier. Not everybody's playing football. You know what I mean? Not everybody is out there. And guess what? You can't play without an opponent. None of us can play football without an opponent. So respect the people that have taken the time and that line up across from you. There's a lot of disrespect in football, a lot of Instagram clips about who's saying what to whom and whatever. I think we got to get back to where we're respecting our opponents, and it starts in the youth level. And just know, guys, if your league falls apart, you're going to have to drive 4 hours in order to play a football game if people don't want to play football anymore. And that would be a heartbreak to me. And so I think you've got to respect and honor the people that are lining up across from you, and that are working hard in the August heat and doing those things, the same thing you're doing. You got to respect those guys. And I would hope that coaches carried that to their team.
And lastly, what advice would you have for parents that either have football players, young football players, or are debating about whether or not their child should play?
Well, number one, what's the kid want to do? Does the kid want to play? If the kid wants to play, then it's still, you're still the parent. It's still your call. But I think that number one, do they want to do it? And I would say, this kind of goes back to your earlier question. Your coach has got to make it fun. You know what I mean? Because you want kids to keep coming out there. I mean, our practice is fun. You know what I mean? Like we've got a lot of pressure on us, but practice is fun. Our guys are having a lot of fun, and they're jabbing at each other and they're talking trash, and then everybody's dapping each other afterwards because there's a respect there. So, having fun. So the kid wants to do it. I say, let him do it. You know what I mean? That's just me. Like, football's a great sport. It's given me my entire career, has more or less been around for football. And when I tried to get away from it, I couldn't do it.
Hold you back in.
I just couldn't do it. And so, it's given me a life, and it's taught me some of the earliest lessons that I carry with me all the way through happened on the football field. You know what I mean? Getting myself knocked down and knocked down and knocked down and, push off the earth and get up. And that's, my advice is that very thing. And the other thing is let coaches coach.
Yeah.
Let coaches coach.
Yeah.
I hate to say this. People will probably come at me, but you really watch the broadcast and you hear people talk about, they're not really talking about the important things game wise. They're really not talking about the things that you need to know in order to get ill, Jim Moore. You think you know, but you don't know. If you want to be critical of a coach, then coach. Pick up a clipboard, pick up a whistle, put your time in. You know what I mean? Don't just stand there, show up halfway through practice with your cup of coffee and start talking trash about the coaches. You know, get there and coach, grab a clipboard, help out, you know what I mean? And I would also say to parents, don't be in the negative column in terms of the assessment of that young person. Like if I'm recruiting and I've got parents that are a little bit crazy, it's not good. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're, you know, if they're difficult to deal with, and you've got someone that doesn't have difficult, you know, situations, you know, but we'll sit down and have conversations. But you know, one of the things that Coach Rule does is if a parent wants to talk about, you know, their athlete and why they're playing or why they're not playing, those conversations always happen with the parent and the kid, parent and the player. And everything that coach says to the parent, he will say to the kid, and everything he says to the kid, he will say to the parent. Like, this is, you guys want to have a conversation about him, then we're going to sit down and collectively we're going to have a conversation, and we'll put on the tape and we'll show practice habits and things like that. And none of this like, hey, let me talk to you about it. No. Why don't you and Johnny come here and we'll talk about it?
Right.
And I want to make sure that you understand he's giving this instruction and he's not fulfilling this, and this is why this is happening. Or put the dang tape on him. He's not running the ball. He's not running the ball.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's not running the ball. He's got to run the football. You know what I mean? The best value is how close you are to the football by at the end of the play.
Sure.
You know?
Sure.
Like that's a direct correlation to your value as a football player. Run to the football. So I think parents wise is respect those coaches, respect the work that they do. And if you want to have conversations with them, then approach them respectfully, you know, about playing time or about how they're approaching things. But in the end, like, hey man, pick up a whistle, and do the work, because it ain't easy. It ain't easy. And being a coach, being an official, like those are the ones that make these things happen, make these leagues happen. And I think we gotta respect them.
Go on, Padden. You're a treasure, man. I love it. And thank you for hanging with us and giving your thoughts and your wisdom, sharing it with our audience. And listen, good luck, man. This is a great journey that you guys are just beginning in Lincoln.
Thanks, Ant, and everybody that was behind us at Temple. You're on this journey with us. Believe it, Philly.
Hey guys, here at Yo Kid Sports, for Brendan Petrilli and myself, Anthony Gargano, I just want to thank you for hanging on our channel. We love it. All right, we love doing this content. Just do us a solid and hit the subscribe button, because the more people that we can reach, that we can amplify this thing, the better guests, the more content that we can produce. So do us a solid, hit the subscribe, tell your friends, your families, your coaches, get everybody subscribed, because chances are here at Yo Kid Sports, we're going to be talking about your kid or your coach. It's a lot of fun. Hang with us.